children must make the truth their own. What steps can they take to establish their identity as a servant of Jehovah? That's the topic of the next episode of My Teen Life.
Me and my mum started attending meetings and studying the Bible when I was 5 years old. When I was 13, I decided to get baptised.
I decided to dedicate my life to Jehovah when I was 14. To me, Jehovah is a wonderful God. He's not just a friend you can count on, but also a father. I don't have a spiritual father here on earth, but I have Jehovah as my father.
It was always something that I had in mind, to let the truth convince me that not to serve Jehovah just because my family does, to serve Jehovah because of the love I feel for him. Having that clearly in mind is very important and will make all the difference when a problem arises or we have to deal with something in the future.
Some of the truths that convinced me that Jehovah was really my God were mainly basic truths. I believe that they're like the foundation of a house. Without a good base, a good foundation, a house will not remain standing. For example, I wanted to understand better from a more scientific standpoint that Jehovah really created all things. So I read a lesson from the brochure Origin of Life. From that, I saw how Jehovah really made everything in a very complex way, and that there was no other explanation. It was doubts like that that moved me to study the Bible more and helped me to build a better friendship with Jehovah and to be more convinced that he was the true God.
We're watching the latest installment in the hotly anticipated series, My Teen Life. So this is episode 4, Who Am I? Reminds me of that scene in Zoolander.
Who am I? I don't know.
Anyway, this whole series seems to me, as I've repeatedly said, to be just an attempt at mimicking YouTube. Because, for example, in the case of Tainara, I've probably mispronounced the name, she sat there on her bed, the same way as most YouTubers would film in their bedroom. I think the same can be said there for Alex as well. They're both in settings that are typical of YouTubers. The difference, as I've said before, between an authentic YouTube video where someone is sat in their bedroom vlogging and what we're seeing here is that these individuals are not speaking authentically. They are being told what to say. They are not allowed to say certain things. They're not allowed to express doubts. It's all heavily manicured propaganda. And what really stood out for me was where they again take a pop at evolution or try promoting creationism.
I wanted to understand better from a more scientific standpoint that Jehovah really created all things. So I read a lesson from the brochure Origin of Life. From that, I saw how Jehovah really made everything in a very complex way, and that there was no other explanation.
There was no other explanation. It simply had to be the Garden of Eden. It simply had to be. And I realise I'm going to be offending lots of people watching this who are Christians. Although I don't think all Christians take the Eden story literally, by the way. I think you can be a Christian and not take a literalist interpretation of the Garden of Eden story. But there's no other explanation, apparently, other than that if we were to travel 6,000 years back in time to a certain part of the Middle East, we would be able to witness Giraffes popping into existence. Hippopotamus, poof. Alligator, poof. Monkey, poof. Humans, poof. Just popping into existence. That is the only explanation for how life came to be. 1 minute, there is no armadillo. And then the next second, boom, there's an armadillo. Fully formed, hasn't evolved. God has just decided that in his universe, and particularly on this planet Earth, there needs to be armadillos. So he's just, there it is, magic trick. That's the only explanation. Scientifically speaking, of course, because that's the context that we're being given here. What was her name? Tainara wanted a more scientific viewpoint, and her approach to pursuing a more scientific standpoint wasn't to speak to scientists, wasn't to learn about biology and hear from biologists. It was this. It was this brochure, The Origin of Life. Tainara decided to get her scientific standpoint from a piece of creationist propaganda, which, by the way, if Tibor is gracious, we'll see a thumbnail, has already been debunked on this channel with the help of Professor Jerry Coyne, who really does know his stuff and really does study biology and knows about biology. Dr. Coyne was kind enough to go through this brochure with me and another brochure, similar one, that's also touting creationism, and just debunk claim after claim after claim that is made by people who clearly do not know anything about science and obviously have never exposed themselves to arguments against the creationist viewpoint. And that's the source, that's the scientific standpoint that young people are being encouraged to pursue in this video.